Solar today is the cheapest source of energy in history. Nothing else is as cheap as solar today. And solar is so cheap that there's a company in Australia building houses with solar panels. Solar panels are so cheap that you can use them instead of structural plywood. This is going to change everything. There is no reason to use anything else. And the economics of SWB are disruptive. Because it's a U-curve and not a straight line, essentially what you get is that a 20% additional incremental investment can return 200 to 300% more energy.
In this video, Tony the GOAT Seba is about to break your brain, explaining that we're on the cusp of entering an era of hyperabundance with profound implications, where fossil fuels become a thing of the past. Just kidding, they already are, but people haven't figured that out yet. They will soon. The marginal cost of energy falls to zero and everything dramatically changes for the better. And if you happen to own Tesla stock, this video is especially important, as Tony Seba indirectly explains how Tesla is set to capture a huge slice of a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity. This is going to be good. Wait, did somebody say good? What a great segue to talk about how good I am at plugging my Patreon page. I can't help myself. You guys really should join. Use the card in the corner, link in pinned comment. It's going fucking bananas. I'm not even kidding. What, 300 plus people signed up yesterday and the day before. It's going bananas. I'm not joking around. I told you I'm taking the over, and well, it's going according to plan. In fact, it's going even better than I planned. And again, just a reminder, I am giving you fair warning. If you're thinking of joining, now is definitely the time. You'll understand why pretty soon. With today's new exclusive video, again, posted before this one to YouTube, we've now cracked 200 exclusive videos and rapidly counting. It's only a matter of time until I get you. It's either going to be today, tomorrow, next week, or in a few months' time. Don't say I didn't warn you.
Let's talk about the coming disruption of energy. So start with technology cost curves. Solar is the cheapest form of energy generation on the planet, unsubsidized. Solar today is the cheapest source of energy in history. Nothing else is as cheap as solar today.
Just in case you somehow failed to hear that very important piece of information that Tony literally repeated 3 times in the span of about 5 seconds, solar today is already the cheapest form of energy generation on planet Earth. Today, not tomorrow, not in 10 years, today. Boy, I'd love to find a company that was creating and selling compelling solar products with a huge roadmap for massive expansion. Maybe a combination of ugly ass solar panels and also an integrated solar panel in roof tiles for newly constructed homes on the higher end. That'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it? They might have a pretty large opportunity. It'd be even better if in addition to that, they also sold battery storage and also had some software to actually move that energy around. If such a company existed, I'd probably have invested in them. Kind of reminds me of that company I invested in early 2016 in February called, what was it, Solar City? Such a shame that they got acquired by this Tesla company because they suck and I don't own any Tesla stock and therefore I've totally missed out on the solar opportunity. Woe is me.
You know, this is why we've seen solar capacity grow by thousands of percent in just a decade. And today solar is so cheap that the total costs of solar are lower than just the operating costs of coal, nukes, oil, or gas generation. That's today.
It's very important that everyone watching understands this point. Already today, just the operating costs of traditional fossil fuel-based sources of energy, on average, globally, are higher than the total cost, when you account for everything, the total cost of solar. Just the operating costs of this archaic technology, just the operating costs of a coal plant, just the operating costs are more expensive than the all-in cost of solar today. The implications of this are truly profound. We are going to see multiple trillions of dollars of market capitalization evaporate in the span of just a few years as the world finally figures this out. Today, it makes absolutely no financial sense. In fact, I'll take it a step further. It is financial suicide today to be investing in new fossil fuel-based sources of power generation. These are instantly stranded assets. You're not getting your money back, period. There may be short-term fluctuations in demand and supply and prices. I get that. But over the long term, anyone today at any of these companies making any decisions to spend additional money developing new fossil fuel-based sources of energy generation are insane. It makes zero financial sense. You guys understand the implications, right? As I've said, the example with electric vehicles and ICE vehicles, price parity, eventually consumers will require brain damage to buy ICE over EV. Today, commercial fleets already require brain damage to buy ICE vehicles over EV. So too with the fossil fuel-based energy industry. Today, as I record this, it literally requires brain damage to be investing in fossil fuel-based sources of energy generation. Those who don't have brain damage will be seeking solutions that include solar, wind, hydro, and battery storage. And if that's true, spoiler alert it is, any companies on Earth today who are already producing solar and batteries have a huge opportunity in front of them. And when I say huge, I literally mean a multi-trillion dollar opportunity.
So even if you get that gas power plant for free, the costs of running that power plant are higher than all the cost of solar. And that's happening today. What do you think is going to happen to coal, nuke, oil, and gas? They're disrupted, right? They can't compete. For purely economic reasons, solar is already disrupting everything else. Solar improved by 82% in costs in the 2010s. Is that shocking? Because, some folks said that that was unpredictable. Well, I did predict it. In 2010, I wrote an article, an op-ed in the San Francisco Chronicle that said exactly that I expected solar costs to drop 80 to 90% over the next decade. And unsubsidized solar would be cheaper than anything else.
And of course, everyone at the time simply laughed, because that's what you do. When somebody says something that's true about the future at the time, that sounds crazy, you point and laugh, mock and ridicule, dismiss, and then 10 years later you pretend that you weren't mocking, ridiculing, laughing and dismissing because it was obvious. And then you quickly delete all history and evidence of you having ever said anything to the contrary. For real though, round of applause, massive credit where it's due. Tony, the GOAT OG, always getting it right, always getting laughed at, continuing to get it right, continuing to make predictions about the future that sound laughable at the time, and continuing to be on the money. Predictable declining cost curves have big implications for those who are willing to do the thinking rather than emoting and feeling. Keep this in mind. Tony's track record of predicting things that at the time sound insane and then play out almost exactly as predicted a decade earlier gives him a huge amount of credibility when making future predictions, which we're about to hear. So take notes and consider everything Tony says with his history, his track record, as important context. Of all the people making predictions about the future, I'm unaware of anyone with a better track record when it comes to this type of disruption.
Right? So the cost curves, again, are like gravity. These things can be predicted, right? I don't care what anybody's opinion of gravity is. That is settled science. And today in America, 90% the generation projects that are waiting to be interconnected to the network, to the grid, 90% are solar or wind. And 98% of storage is batteries. Solar, wind, and batteries are eating everything, despite the fact that utilities don't like solar. 90% of projects waiting for an interconnection, solar or wind. And solar is so cheap now, a cent per kilowatt hour, 2 cents per kilowatt hour. Steel producers are moving where the solar is, right? So cheap, abundant energy changes everything. Essentially, companies are moving to where cheap energy is. But it's not only industrial, right, or utility scale. On basically rooftops, the thing that will change everything, assuming of course, that we have a competitive market, that we don't have monopolies, utilities pushing back like they are on rooftop solar and batteries. So what I call GOAT parity, generation on demand, is when the cost of rooftop solar, whether it's residential or commercial, falls, and batteries fall below the cost of transmission, right? When the cost of you generating your own energy falls below the cost of transmission, meaning that even if utility scale generation is zero, when you add the transmission and the CEO costs, essentially it's still going to be higher than self-generation. And we're there. We're already there, right? That's called GOAT parity. We're pretty much there around the world, thousands of cities potentially below GOAT parity.
This also is abso-fucking-lutely insane. Just want to make sure that everybody understood what Tony was referring to there. We're already today, depending on where you are in the world, just in general terms, already today, and this is continuing to get cheaper and cheaper, already today, it's more economical when you fully factor in the lifetime cost of ownership. More economical today to use solar, to generate energy, to store that on a battery. That whole system today is cheaper than just the transmission, as in moving energy from point A, centralized generator, power plant and so on, to a consumer. It's already cheaper today than just the transmission of the energy being generated from the legacy system. The economic implications here are profound. Again, going back to the fact that it will be necessary to have brain damage to do certain things. This is another one of those cases. The numbers don't lie. It doesn't matter what consumers think they want or don't want or how people would ideally like the world to work. If there is a system that is superior in every way and significantly cheaper than the old way of doing things, an enormous disruption is inevitable. The old way of generating, storing, and supplying energy is going extinct faster than most people realize. You guys understand how insane it is? The fact that today, the entire system, solar, battery, plus the software to move energy around, is cheaper than just the cost to transmit energy from the legacy system? Absolute fucking madness.
And solar is so cheap that there's a company in Australia building houses with solar panels. Solar panels are so cheap that you can use them instead of structural plywood. Even if you don't generate energy, solar PV is cheaper than plywood.
The fuck? My brain just broke. Like, actually just fucking broke. The physical structure, the actual solar panels themselves that can generate energy from the sun are cheaper than structural plywood. It's cheaper to build a house, or at least parts of a house, with solar panels that you don't even use to generate energy than it is to build those same homes using structural plywood. Would you like some free energy generation as well and a cheaper construction cost? Oh, you would? Well, great. Insane. Absolutely insane. Again, super profound implications.
That's happening today. So you get all that energy for free, right? It's a gift. It's essentially buy the house, get free energy, or buy the energy, get a free house. Any way you look at it have changed dramatically, and solar is going to continue coming down in costs. We expect another 70% plus over the next 10 years.
There's no way that's going to happen. Plus, this guy's an idiot. He's never made a successful long-range prediction, especially about the cost decline of solar in the past, so let's ignore everything he says.
And wind is going to drop. It dropped by 46. It's going to drop another 43 over the next decade. Battery costs, which went down by almost 90%, we expect another 80+% over the next 10 years.
So if this guy wasn't an idiot with a terrible track record at making predictions, and it was actually true, if the cost of batteries are going to decline approximately 80% over the next decade, would that have any implications for adoption rates and sales volumes for electric vehicles? Would that have any implications for the internal combustion engine vehicle and the companies currently making all of their profits manufacturing these vehicles? Nah. Definitely not.
That convergence of solar, wind, and battery is already happening. Solar and wind are the cheapest sources of energy, period. And we expect that combination of solar, wind, and battery to be 70% cheaper by 2030. So the cheapest sources of energy are becoming 70% cheaper. What do you think is going to happen? This is going to change everything. There is no reason to use anything else, right? Disruption is inevitable, right? Now, one of the things that the mainstream has pushed back on, and many experts have pushed back on, is the idea that you cannot have 100% solar, wind, and batteries, right? It's a moving target, by the way. First they said you can't have more than 5% penetration, then 15%, then 30%, then 50%. I mean, that story keeps changing, right? But now they say you cannot have 100%, right? So we did the numbers for the whole system. We took real world, hourly wind and solar demand generation data across the US. We simulated the battery to see if it was possible for a system to be 100% solar, wind, and battery.
So you're telling me, instead of using their gut feel, their emotions, their intuition, their hunch, these dumbasses actually did the numbers and extrapolated and did some serious modeling to determine the economics of this kind of system, and then drew some conclusions based on thinking, calculating, and reasoning rather than emoting and feeling. I guess that means we should definitely disregard everything they say because they're idiots. I mean, after all, if everyone would actually think like this, all of the legacy automotive manufacturers who still today think they'll be producing ICE vehicles beyond 2030 would have realized that they're not going to be, because they'd be bankrupt if that was true, and would have been moving aggressively toward fully electric vehicles about a decade ago. And obviously, as we know, things are working out perfectly fine for the legacy automotive manufacturers, so this method of actually thinking and calculating and extrapolating, what a waste of fucking time.
We started with New England as a system, and Texas as a system, and California as a system. And we ran the numbers, and the answer is yes, you can have energy systems that are totally 100% solar, wind, and batteries. Not only can you have that system is the cheapest possible energy generation system on the planet. Nothing else comes close to that.
Cheapest system on Earth, no contest, not even close. So I guess what he's saying is Tesla's probably not going to sell many of those batteries that they think they're going to sell, and the solar business is a really dumb idea as well, and they should just stick to making cars.
But here's the other things that we found. There is a non-linear trade-off between generation and storage. So this is not just a one-to-one substitution of, you take out a coal plant and you put in solar, wind, and battery and so on, right? If you overbuild, quote unquote, solar, you need fewer batteries. And if you underbuild, then you need more batteries. So there is a non-linear, it's a U-curve. We call that the clean energy U-curve. And in fact, the least cost system have anywhere from 3 to 5 times more capacity to generate, depending on geography, than the conventional energy system. 3 to 5 times. Nowhere on the planet have we found that needed more than a few days of storage. So anyone who sells the idea of seasonal storage, that we need months and months and months of storage from the summer to the winter or vice versa, is not looking at the evidence, right? We haven't found a single place that needs more than a few days of battery storage. In America, it's somewhere between 35 and 90 hours, basically under 4 days of battery storage. So yes, it's possible. Yes, it's the cheapest possible energy system, and it will create so much energy, free energy. So these are the numbers to build a 100% solar, wind, and battery system by 2030 if we had started when we published the report a couple of years ago. And this is a phase change disruption. The 100% solar, wind, and battery system is not the old system. The old system is a caterpillar. The new system is a butterfly. You can't just add wings to the old system and pretend that it's a new system. It's not. It has different properties, different metrics, different dimensions. And one of the most important ones is what we call superpower. In energy, solar, wind, and battery, because we have so much more capacity to generate the demand that we already have, we're going to generate vast amounts of energy in addition to meeting existing demand. And that's super abundant, zero marginal cost energy.
The implications of this are staggering. We just heard the marginal cost of additional energy falls to effectively zero. What does this mean? You're already going to need the infrastructure for a certain baseline amount of energy. If you just build a tiny additional amount of storage and or generation, you get a huge surplus of energy that costs you almost nothing. The question then, what do you do with all this surplus energy?
How so? In California, we can generate nearly twice the electricity that we generate today for free. And this is superpower, 93% of days. And even in New England, 64% of days, they can generate almost twice as much energy as they generate today, right? Anywhere in the world, we've looked, we have found massive, some more than others, of course, depending on geography and demand, superpower. And superabundant clean energy changes everything, right? And it's not just disruptive to electric power, it's disruptive to all forms of energy. So if you think about Texas, for instance, the existing demand in blue and orange is superpower, meaning that's the superabundant excess clean energy generation that is essentially zero cost. If you invest in the least cost system, essentially Texas could meet all of its transportation needs using this superpower. If Texas chooses to build a slightly bigger system, so invest 20% more money, it could meet all its transportation, residential, and commercial usage, and a lot of the industrial. It's disruptive to everything. Essentially space heat, industrial heat, it can all be met with solar, wind, and battery. And superpower, like I said, is free. But it's not a one-to-one substitution. In Texas, for instance, solar capacity would be 9 times higher than wind capacity, right? So the solar opportunity is a lot larger than the mainstream one-to-one substitution implies. 9 times more solar. And in fact, Texas would need just 49 hours of storage to combine with solar and wind to meet all its existing demand, right? 2 full days of storage. Think about it. The outages that we had in Texas recently would not have happened if they had a solar, wind, and battery infrastructure. They would have had 2 full days of storage, no matter what, even if there's no sunshine and there's no wind. And this, of course, doesn't include distributed storage in electric vehicles and so on. What about Alaska? Can you do that in Alaska, solar, wind, and batteries? So I was recently there with my RethinkX team. We studied 3 regions in Alaska: Anchorage and the Rail Belt, the largest one, Juneau, the capital, and Kotzebue, which is north of the Arctic Circle. In all of these regions, you can meet 100% of the demand with solar, wind, and batteries. Alaska has a lot of hydro that is already installed. So essentially, if you keep the existing hydro, you don't have to tear it down, you don't need to build new hydro, you can meet 100% of the electric power and energy demand in Alaska with just solar, wind, and batteries, even 30 miles north of the Arctic Circle, period. What about Germany? Northern country, economic power. Can they do 100% solar, wind, and battery? Yes, they can. And Germany can meet all its electricity needs with solar and wind and batteries and about 110 hours of battery storage. That's all they need. So there's no need for seasonal storage, but they need a lot of solar, right? In fact, they need more solar than wind to meet all those needs. And they can meet all their electricity needs. And if they invest in a system that is 20% more investment than the least cost system, essentially Germany could generate more than twice their existing electricity demand in superpower. So they can generate twice their existing demand for electricity, and the 600 terawatt hours are essentially superpower, right? What can Germany do with a power infrastructure that generates twice for a lot less money than basically today? And they can be self-sufficient. They don't need to import anything, gas or whatever. They don't need to be held hostage for their energy needs.
Did somebody say energy independence? I got a funny feeling Germany's probably thinking a little bit more clearly about this topic in the last 6 months. They didn't listen to Orange Man bad 4, 5, 6 years ago. In fact, they laughed at him. They did listen and they laughed, pointing out dependence on energy from Russia, oil, probably not a good idea, national security risk. A couple of years later, Russia invades Ukraine. Next minute, energy prices through the roof in Germany, who were too busy virtue signaling and shutting down dangerous, polluting nuclear energy because apparently it's bad. Meanwhile, as they were shutting down critical sources of energy, they were simultaneously not building solar, battery, wind, hydro. Next minute, total energy dependence on Russia. How'd that work out? Germany?
India. India has amazing geography for solar, wind, and battery. India's electricity cost can be 1 cent per kilowatt hour, and all they would need is about a day of battery storage. India can be an energy superpower. And imagine what that superabundant energy at 1 cent or even free for superpower can do for the economy. And it can generate almost twice the energy almost every single day of the year. And the economics of SWB are disruptive, right? Because it's a U-curve and not a straight line, essentially what you get is that a 20% additional incremental investment can return 200 to 300% more energy. What investment essentially can you make that if you make a 20% incremental investment, it's going to return 200% plus more superpower? No form of extraction, resource, energy can compete with this. None, period. Some would say, why waste that overcapacity, 4x? Why have, 4 times solar or whatever? Well, again, the incumbents, an incumbent mindset, don't see the opportunity space, right? So think about Amazon a decade ago. They created this vast information technology infrastructure, but they essentially used it 5 weeks of the year, the holiday shopping season. Essentially, they overbuilt their information technology capacity for the rest of the year. Let's call it super data center, right? So essentially, the creation myth goes, they said, why don't we rent out excess capacity to others, to the market? And they did. And thus, Amazon Web services was born. $1 trillion business was born because of that.
This is a fascinating point here from Tony, and something definitely worth pondering.
So what are the business model innovations that are going to open up because of superpower, right? The incumbents won't see it. They see superpower as a liability. Of course they do, right? But the entrepreneurs, what are the business model innovations? What are the new products and services that can be built, like Amazon built Amazon Web Services? So New England superpower, 20% additional investment, 200% additional superpower. This is New England, right? And this changes economic development. So for Texas, 100% solar, wind, and battery with 20% upsizing, which would cost just about $42 billion. With that incremental superpower, right? So that system could meet all the demand, today's electricity demand, and that superpower could power every data center in the world, every Bitcoin miner in the world, and they would still have 106 terawatt hours for industrial purposes or any other purpose. All that is superpower. That's free energy. That's how superpower changes everything. It changes water desalination. It changes waste. It changes manufacturing. It has geopolitical consequences. Superpower, solar, wind, and battery superpower changes everything.
Too long didn't watch? 2 words. Profound implications. I'll throw in a few extra words as well. Profound economic and societal implications. And that is an understatement. We're on the cusp of entering an era of energy hyperabundance, where there's more energy than we know what to do with, the cost of which is essentially zero. The big question: what new products and services, industries and businesses will be economically viable for the very first time? There's so much opportunity here, it defies belief. The big question: how creative can entrepreneurs and business people really be? Some of the implications of this include the complete and utter catastrophic collapse of the fossil fuel industry, enormous disruption of utilities, and from a business point of view, a truly colossal multi-trillion-dollar opportunity for any companies out there who produce solar, whether residential, commercial or both, who produce battery storage, residential, commercial or both, and who've developed software to perform energy arbitrage, to participate in energy markets, to move energy from point A to point B. In other words, transmission/supply of energy that's generated through solar and or wind and or hydro and stored in batteries. If any such company were in existence, just their energy business alone could potentially grow to be worth multiple trillions of dollars over the next decade or so. Sadly, no such company exists, so I'm just going to keep buying the stock of my favorite just a car company. Oh, there was one more thing. What was it? Oh, that's right. You should definitely join Patreon with the card in the corner or the link at the pinned comment. Over 200 exclusive videos and counting rapidly, instant up-to-date access to my Tesla price targets, and loads more. So, see you over there. Love ya.